University is old, but it must be young. Young if cooperate with students from other countries, and in my opinion, this conference, this school, is a simple continuation of the best tradition of the very old Wrocław University. I wish you the good stay in Wrocław and fruitful school, and I'm very, very sorry. I must go to my work today with Lector Magnificus who is absent, and I am deputy rector, and I must go, but my heart will be with you. Thank you very much.
Dear Vice Rector, Professor Jezierski, dear Vice Dean of the Faculty of Social Science, dear Director of the Institute of Political Sciences, here at the Wrocław University, dear representative of the City of Wrocław, dear President of LG, and dear representative of the Academia Europaea, dear organizers of this summer school, dear presenters, and most importantly, dear participants of this summer school. On behalf of the University of Koblenz-Landau, which is one of the co-organizers of this summer school, in this context I would also like to welcome my colleague Professor Sigmar Schmidt, and on behalf of the President of our University, Professor Roman Heiligenthal, who apologizes for not being here, but wishes the meeting the very best. I would like to welcome you as well very much to this summer school on democracy, innovation and change in the public and private sector. We are very honored as a University of Koblenz-Landau, which is probably even a little bit younger than many of the students here, because it's a relatively young university in contrast to the University of Wrocław. It's just a little bit more than 20 years old, so probably similar age than many of the students. This honors us very, very much to be a participant and an important partner here in this summer school together with this university, which is very rich in tradition and has provided very famous names to the scientific community. The University of Wrocław and the University of Koblenz-Landau cooperate now already for more than 8 years in a very intensive manner, with exchange of students and most importantly also exchange of staff members for teaching and research cooperations. This exchange is funded by Erasmus, and it involves also partners nowadays from Romania, from Belgium, from Serbia, Croatia and the Ukraine. The partners have together achieved a proposal for Erasmus Plus, another program funded by the European Union, which is currently under evaluation, and this proposal includes also the incorporation of NGOs, and among them also the recently funded Peace Academy in Landau, which is something rather new for our federal state of Rhine-Palatinate. The political persons have decided to create such a Peace Academy, and we are very proud that it is placed in Landau within Rhine-Palatinate, and I also see particularly for this Peace Academy a lot of options for fruitful cooperation here with the summer school and the activities coming out of this fruitful cooperation. When I look at the topic and at this combination of the long history of this university with a rather young and short history of our university and the other involved partners, I see several avenues for a continuing and prosperous development of this very successful cooperation. One is probably to link the social and political sciences which up to now have been the most important part and the central part of this cooperation, also with natural and environmental sciences. And I just had the opportunity and the honor to discuss this also with the vice rector here of the university, and he's also very, very interested in intensifying this cooperation. I think this link between social sciences, humanities on the one hand, and the natural sciences is something that hopefully will help us to get a better handle on the increasingly important conflicts and problems, environmental problems and conflicts, and problems related, for example, to resource competition and resource problems that we face all over the world. Another avenue might be to strengthen the axis between Poland, Germany, and France, the so-called Weimar Triangle that you probably all are aware of, which just recently has become reactivated due to the Ukraine conflict. And I think this triangle could probably be also used more intensified in the context of research and cooperation in the academic area. So that's probably also another option, with our university being very close to France and having very strong relationships with the universities in France, but obviously Wrocław University also has cooperations with colleagues in France. This might be something to think about in the area of social sciences and natural sciences to form a link or a triangle here involving these countries. So there's many different options for improving and further developing this fruitful cooperation. And one important step is this summer school that starts here officially today. It's a very, very large summer school, probably the largest one I ever heard of, with more than 60 participants. So I wish you all the very best for this. The students obviously should make the most out of the summer school, challenge the experts if they give you speeches, don't believe everything they tell you, just ask them and criticize them and be active in that, actively participate here, and most importantly, experience the international and intercultural experience and flavor that you will have here during this great event. Thank you very much.
Vice Rector, professors, but mostly the students. On behalf of the faculty and the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at Wrocław University, I have the privilege and great fun to welcome all of you here in that main hall of the university, as well later in our buildings in the Institute of Political Science. Firstly, I have to say that Dr. Piotr Suna, who is organizing this summer school, which is the sort of the second edition, he is still planned for the weather, and as you see, the weather should come in immediate, in a very, very great manner. Secondly, I would like to say that hopefully you don't only teach sciences and studying the aspects of politics and social aspects as well, but the summer school's idea is also to share the ideas between the professors as well as the students. So I think that's the true and significant bridge between students and professors. And my last, not maybe least, I think that here you spend lovely times, of course, in scientific ones, but also to have experience here in Wrocław, in beautiful city of Long Silesia. So please welcome at Wrocław University and the Faculty of Social Sciences with the most emphasis
this summer school is a fantastic thing to observe, and also a fantastic opportunity to show up and say just a few words about Crossroads. Now, we are very happy to have an international company of students and teachers working together and exchanging ideas. But this, I would say, is particularly important for the business of today. We're very happy that this is the second edition, and it does seem that there are fantastic prospects there. I was also thrilled to see about the interesting connections now on the table. Please pursue this path. It is important. It is important that the academics really do sometimes, I would call it kitchen work or backstage work for processes, but you are responsible for a large project thinking. If you don't do this, I guess I don't know. Now, Wrocław is an interesting place to study innovation. So the topic of today's, the topic of the summer school, I would say, is well chosen for this specific place. Because Wrocław, if you consider this city as a phenomenon that has a social dimension, an economic dimension, a political dimension, it is a huge experiment. And it is an experiment that is miraculously successful. In 1945, when the German city of Breslau was just in ashes, and it was taken by the Soviet Army, it didn't seem like it, that this city would ever flourish again. The German population was deported, and a new flood of immigrants from former Polish East came in. Now, you can think of any kind of suffering that this city, this region has seen, as of course Central Europe has seen. Polish state, but also the countries further in the east. So, if you think about the life of institutions, political revival, political rebirth, there's a lot of things to discuss and read. If you think about life cycles of institutions, institutional change, institutions adopting change from the outside, adopting to novel circumstances, such as a new political setup, that of democracy. There's a lot of things to discuss again. In Wrocław, as a city in Central and Eastern Europe. I know that many of you come from countries or cities with similar experiences, but Wrocław would be special because it does have a special history. No other city in the world with such a fantastic history, perhaps except the lowland of India and Pakistan, did actually see 99% change of its population. So it's unique. Now, we've also had in the last 10 years some interesting cases of innovation in institutional life. The cities in the Polish constitutional order do not have very strong powers. They are basically communes. Their business is to cater to the basic needs of the citizen, provide basic mass services, but not really engage in economic development strategies. But what happened in the last 10 years after the accession to the EU was that the cities spontaneously adopted this growth. This was an innovation. And from my point of view, as I was already a staff member, it was fascinating to see that innovation can actually be so simple. It was simple. 2004, suddenly external circumstances changed. Investors are interested in Wrocław because it is conveniently situated, because it has relevant infrastructure, because it is already part of the common European market. And it seems that all you need to do is go to Warsaw and work with the central authorities and try to win specific bids. And it's almost impossible to imagine today, but not all cities understood that. So if you could understand that very simple fact and simply go to Warsaw, you were the winner. And you had a headway in winning foreign direct investment bids for that. Then, it's almost impossible today to imagine that there was a time where cities did not have their own economic development agencies, but they didn't. And Wrocław was the first one that established such an agency, even though the lawyers were very skeptical about this idea, saying that this is not really very sure in terms of our legal competence. That's obvious. Everybody, most of our cities do that. So the last decade, for the people engaged in the processes that are very important and intensive in the public sector, has been a very interesting time. There's a lot of stories to share with you. And of course, these are specifically Polish stories, because as you very well know, innovation is very much about symbolics. It's about values that we don't even realize we follow. So institutions and models are important, but then at the end of the day, it's usually about some cultural aspect that needs to drive the process or stops. This is why a meeting like this is so important, because you have a fantastic opportunity to learn about yourself, and as others, I encourage you to use this time to exchange ideas and remember that innovation is very much about the symbolic aspect. So again, thank you very much. I hope you have a fantastic time and also enjoy it.
Now I would like you to introduce to more economic perspective on the outcomes of the results of economic crisis. So the representative of LG company will give us the lecture devoted to the perspective of international company on the consequences of the crisis and the strategies.
My name is Song Kim from LG Display. Unfortunately, today the screen is very red because of the connection issue. Please understand the situation. Today's topic will be fire performance of change and challenges. That is dedicated to our company innovation practices. But during my presentation, I can show some examples related to other companies. This is just an example. So please understand. I entered the LDA as a system engineer in 1991, and I worked for strategic business planning team. Also, I worked for service unit planning team. After that, 2000, I moved to LG company, and I recovered, and I managed the IT planning and process and general operations. In 2005, I moved to LG Display, and I managed the ERP systems and equipment management and process innovation teams. Right now, I work for LG Display in Busan. My team name is Process Today I received a call from my president. Could you present our innovation cases to university students? But I worried, how can I express, how can I present this thing to our students? But using my experience, I try, and I will show my companies some examples. How can we innovate our company, and how can we achieve the first thing in the LCD market? As you see, LED display had a remarkable growth in revenue. In 2002, the revenue was 10 billion zloty, but right now, in 2012, 84 billion zloty. So, 8 times the revenue growth. And as you see, the market share is around 29%. Can you watch? And in the market of TV area, 24.6, and notebook area, the market share is 30.3. And LCD monitor market, we achieved 28.2. And tablet area, when you use the iPhone, larger panel can be made by LED display. So the revenue is 39.4%. And LED display has a vision for creating the custom values to optimize the global network. LED display has 53.2 thousand people, and they LED display have 7 substrates for sales, and 8 sales to office, and 5 substrates for production. A little bit difficult to recognize, but I will explain. LED display has OLED TV, and TV displays, high resolution TVs, and sleep TV, and smartphone, automotive, and transparent, flexible displays. We can produce this kind of products, and in Busan, we develop and produce the television TVs. Today's topic is challenge and changing. So I made this word. Being more strong will not make you survive, but those who constantly take care of challenge and changing can survive. In 2013, if you watch this screen, how many quantity of products can be made for smartphone in 1993? As you're watching, phone, video camera, notebook PC, audio devices, and watch and wallet. It can be mixed and integrated in smartphone. So now we can go, this age is digital era. And can you understand this screen? As you watch, Casio is competitor of Samsung because Samsung made Galaxy Gear, and Casio is the market share was around 51%. But in 2007, iPhone was appeared, and BlackBerry didn't concern about this kind of change. And they focusing on touch screen power, and they stick to the quality keyboard. Just thinking about the hardware processor and ignoring the software trends like Apple iOS and Google Android. This is another example for changes. Nokia is the Finland national company. Nokia also stick to the past success and pride prevailed. They just stick to the past success and seek only if Nokia made, then customer will buy. But Nokia also had a big problem in Nokia's business. This is another example for Kodak. As we know, Kodak is the best film company, and Kodak developed the lots of film product. They also produced the digital camera, but they didn't want to produce this digital camera because they don't want to get money from old business, and their business also dropped, and the insufficient coping with the new business model, digital business. So this is another example for the change. This is the Lego example. Lego is more related to offline play culture. Sony developed the PlayStation in 1994, and then Lego had got the financial decrease from 1998 to 2004. This kind of reason, the Mattel, world licensed toy company, tried to acquire this Lego, but Lego tried to change this analog from analog to digital environment. Customer can develop the design program and the 3D model of the Lego.com, and customer's product can be produced in Lego, and Lego made biological business combining book carving and animation, so they can make Lego Star video games. It was adapted in PC and PlayStation and toys. So right now, Lego.com has a big growth in revenue. Annual growth rate is around 22%, and operation margin is from 10 to 25. So we watched two cases. One is not change company, and another company is change company. Right now we can call what is needed for this age. So our role model is Dreamtainer. We need Dreamtainer. Dreamtainer means Dream plus mountainers. Dreamtainer has a bigger dream, so change and challenges. He can overcome his limitation, and he can toward his dream like a life climber. Dreamtainer has a four values. One is positive, second is creative thinking, and third is slide stating, he mentioned the size of the ring influences the line depending on the size of the ring. This is one example for PC, coin PC. If you bring up as a pad, then in the small PC bottle, it can go just 5 centimeters. But if it is go in the aquarium or pond, then it can go 25 centimeters. And in the river, it can go 120 centimeters. So we should think about our green. For part specifically, we have multiple words, but I like this word. Real disability is not physical disability, but reluctance and abandonment. You can be taken away the opportunity from yourself. So this is one experiment from Japanese scientist Yamamoto Masaru. He took a glass of water and he tried with good water, and he got the crystal from the water. This is good for our health. And when he said the bad word to this water, and the water changed to be bad. So practically is the most important thing. Right now I will explain about our company's innovation example. 2010, there was a big show success. Lots of our competitors showed the shutter glass 3D TV. So if you can you follow me like this? Raise your hand and watch this finger. Can you turn? Yeah. Please. And blind one eye. And then the middle will change like this. Then you can watch different side. Using this kind of principle, we can prepare the 3D television. To explain the shutter glass, Samsung and Sharp adopt high post glass and the LED display. They have a problem. How can we do? And competitor already made 100% of shutter glass product. So LED display to get the survey with our customers. We ask, what do you want? What do you really want? Shutter glass or our FPR method? And we get our customer preference. Our customer wanted FPR 3D method. But this is very difficult to adapt this method. So our management had this kind of mind. This is Korean word. 백척간 진일보 10방세의 현전심. This means get rid of the fear away. Let's go one step further on the branch of bamboo to walk toward. As we want to go into the curriculum, this means there is no way to go, but LED display, think, live your life like each day is your last one. So, LED display achieved this result. In FPR Northern American market, we achieved #1 in 2012. For creative thinking, I prepared the 3 screens. This is advertisement. This is advertisement for obsession. And can you find what type of advertisement is it? This is software. And to get the creative thinker, we try to disrupt our dogma. Dogma is our principle or old myth, social myth. This is another our company's example. Right now, from PDP to LCD and LCD to OLED, our company tried to develop OLED TVs to get good quality TV. But in OLED market, our competitors use high metal method mask. Mask is very expensive equipment to show some circuit on our screen. And for large size OLED, our competitor use small mask scanning method. Then they can use lots of masks, then their cost can be increased. So at that time, we are the second of market. That means we are not the first. As you know, Samsung and Sharp, other companies already occupy this new market. And LED display should adopt new method, or we should think about can be powered like our computer. And our executive think, let's change, let's get new method. Without the mask, can you develop these things? Then we can save cost, then our customer can share our market, then the price of TV can be increased, then our customer can use this good television, high resolution television, and with natural color. So we adopted the WLCD, OLED, and right now LED display produced the world first OLED TV. This is curved OLED TV. And now, if you go to the large market, then you can make this curved OLED TV. This is not Korean nada. How can we untangle this nada? As you know, the Alexander, he cut this nada without any intention. To get the creative thinking, we should have a different mind. This is Korean word, tone. If we try to find new changes in difficulty, we will find the answer from the changes. How can we achieve firstly in the LCD market? Our executive think this market over and over, and we think about is it really the best? And we try to get how can we change this market. And according to a good habit, we have this kind of habit. Let's try to storm in our brain. Because of screen issue, you can watch this screen correctly. This is very exciting pictures. Proud not to be killed. He has a passion to be survived. He tries to kill this world. This kind of mind should be got in the market. You are the very young person, so I hope you should get the humility and good listening. Why we get this kind of mind? Because we have lots of customers. Customer has a very different mind to achieve or to get the person in the market. Then our employees should concern about our customer's voice, and our member has this mind. We rather than me. So I will show you another Korean word. This is just a listening, but in Korean word, listening has we can call tone, and tone has lots of character. Listen to the king with the ear, listen to the 10 eyes, listen to one heart. We have 3 words. So when we think about listening, Koreans think about 3 things. So customer can be angered by our bad response. Then with humility and listen to our customer, we want to get our customer voice, and we try to change our strategy. Let's know our and for you, I would like to tell about the failure. Failure is a stepstone to success and further growth. So you should get this word. The most important thing is to accept the failure. Our company also had lots of difficulties. But during the difficulties, our company thinking over and our own objective and employee to overcome this failure. Because as you know, in Korea we have big competitors like Samsung, but in LCD market we achieved the first in the world because of this kind of struggling the war, tough and strong mind. This is all my presentation. I'm sorry. Today I prepared my materials, but unfortunately because of PC issue, I cannot show all the good things to you. Thank you very much.
Probably this is the first evidence for lack of compatibility between the city of Wrocław and LG company. This pink screen can be interpreted like this, but probably
we see such an extraordinary mandate in situations of crisis. And why do citizens accept state of emergency sometimes and the suspension of the laws and norms of normalcy that go with it? There are three traditional arguments to answer these questions. First of all, crises require prompt decisions and actions to ensure that conditions do not deteriorate even further. These cannot be achieved easily in the state of normalcy. In normal times, due to representative government and the separation of powers, there are many actors participating in decision-making process, making the latter time consuming and frequently inconclusive. Second, the state of crisis creates extreme uncertainty in public policy, which makes risk avoidance the dominant motive in the behavior of the elected representative legislators, as opposed to short-term maximization of power. They will tend to delegate some or all their powers to the chief executive. And third, at least according to Jefferson's argumentation, the protection of the public interest is even higher a duty than allegiance to the law. This argument can instigate the leaders in charge of the executive to carry out emergency measures in crisis situation. The extraordinary mandate will enable the realization of the absolute priority of the common interest, even at the cost of harm to private interest and liberties, along with breaching conventional laws. In Jefferson's letter, written during the Civil War, he argued that the actions of the Northern Army was justified in taking horses, hay, provisions, and even men by force based on the primacy of the public interest. The public usually expect leaders to restore normal conditions, and leaders usually justify their claim for emergency power to solve the crisis and restore normality. But sometimes, leaders, especially radical reformers, visionary or revolutionary leaders, justify extraordinary measures to transcend the existing proton structures in order to build a different world which is more promising. The crisis is an exogenous shock, changes the corporate structure of leaders, including the changing expectations from the citizens. We usually formulate the dynamic of the problem in terms of challenge, answer, exogenous shock, reactive action, emergency situation, emergency measures. It seems to us that crisis appears as an objective, exogenous state of affairs which engender extraordinary answers. However, it is not exactly the case. The crisis character of a situation can hardly be linked to clear, objective material criteria. It is rather based on interpretation and political decision. Crises impact political leadership, modify the conditions of leadership, while at the same time, political leaders can also shape and even create crises by means of strategic measures and discursive tools. Crises can be constructed or invented politically by political actions. Political situations have endogenous origin, therefore we need an endogenous explanation of crisis situations. So in this lecture, I will try to reveal the two-way relationship between crisis and political leadership. I'm going to analyze two questions. First, the impact of crises and states of exception on political leadership. How do external shocks change the corporate structure and room for maneuver enjoyed by leaders? The second question of my analysis concerns the role and activity of political leaders in shaping and constructing crises. I will analyze strategic measures and discursive tools used by leaders and also the role of innovation in crises and extraordinary situations. The structure of my lecture is the following, as you can see on the slide. So first about the concepts, and first of all about the concept of political activity in which a political leader gives a vision for the political community, criticizes, refuses, condemns visions of rival leaders. He or she defines the political situation, identifies concrete political goals, what to do, gives support and mobilizes followers to achieve these aims. There are 5 important conceptualizations of leadership, but are worth to mention. The power school associates leadership with pure power building. The trait approach emerges from the great man theories and focuses on identifying the innate qualities and characteristics possessed by great political, social, and military leaders. The situational approach assumes that different situations demand different kinds of leadership. The interactionist concept of leadership conceptualizes leadership through mutual relationship between leaders and followers. And finally, the activity theory focuses on leadership as agency. Each approach highlights one aspect of leadership. For my purpose, however, this activity theory of leadership provides the best theoretical ground. In this approach, leadership is activity. A leader is one who gives direction or meaningfully participates in giving of direction to the activities of the political community, as the political scientist Albert Tucker formulated this. Leadership or direction is needed in situations of uncertainty because leadership is needed in situations of choice. It is required that the answer what to do and how to do is not given. Leadership is not management, not administration or application of rules. And in this situation, routine behavior, in crisis situation, routine behavior often doesn't help. Therefore, in situations where the answer is already given, management, what is needed and not leadership. The second and third concept that I would like to cover is political activity and political situation. I would like to focus on leaders as autonomous agents, on the reaction to crisis situation and on the activity in shaping these situations. Now I would like to recall the concept of a political philosopher, Michael Ocean, to unfold the nature of political action. A political activity in Ocean's analysis is concerned with making a response to political situations. Political activity has in fact 3 main components in this argument. The first one is the contingency of situation. It is cited from Ocean. It is a condition of things recognized to have sprung not from natural necessity, but from human choices or actions, and to which more than one response is possible. Citation ends. The second ingredient is response. That means a political situation is a situation to which a government or other political actors are expected to respond. And the third component is reflection, interpretation, which aims to choose the most appropriate answer to the political situation. The political process, however, cannot be described as a pattern of situation, reflection, response may apparently suggest. A political situation is not an objective thing in two different senses. It is not an objective thing. First, it is not an ex-ante living condition for politics, mirroring the result of social processes to which political actors just react. A political situation is a product of the conduct of actors who have different aims and endeavors for the future, which are often incompatible with each other. Therefore, political situations emerge spontaneously as non-intended results of private political actors' activity. But it is not an objective thing in another sense. It is not intended yet objective state of affairs that would mean same for everybody. On the political situation is a reflection, a conclusion from subjective deliberation, in a way in which reflection is prior to the situation. The situation is different for each autonomous political actor who has their own goals, ideas, normative commitments, and strategy. That means it is not only that the response of an actor to a political situation is subjective, but the situation itself is nothing else than a subjective perception and evaluation of the state of affairs. To sum up this point, political situation is a dimension of political reality from actors' perspective. Evaluating the political situation is to reveal the potentialities of the situation. Namely, the perception and evaluation of the situation depends partly on our own view concerning what we would like to bring into existence from the situation in the future. It means to our topic that the evaluation of the situation, whether it is a state of normalcy or a state of emergency, also depends within certain limits on the strategic goals of the given actors. It depends on what kind of action the given agent intends to carry out, what kind of goals would like to achieve through these acts. The evaluation of the pure facts can be diverse for various sectors. The same facts can be interpreted differently and they may have different meaning for different agents. In politics, different interpretations of the situation by rival actors are rather usual, since the perception of the situation is connected to the actors' political endeavors and scheduled actions. For example, the perception of a state of affairs as normalcy always favors the status quo, while the crisis narrative usually challenges the status quo in some way. Michael Oakeshaw's concept of the political situation highlights a crucial point, namely that political reality includes strong normative, interpretative, and voluntarist elements. It also underlines that the political situation depends strongly on the will and goals of political agents who carry out political actions. And finally, about innovation from these concepts. Innovation is a special kind of agency. In the following slide, we draw Joseph Schumpeter's theory of entrepreneurship to highlight the role of innovation in political leadership. Schumpeter was an economist, but had a few famous chapters on political competition. Schumpeter's description of leadership is based on an economic analogy. He applies his concept of the entrepreneur into politics when he unfolds his concept of political leadership. Entrepreneurs are actors who are not satisfied with the application of tested methods and the experiences of the past, but who have vision about the future. The function of entrepreneurs is distinct from the managerial function. First of all, innovation and not routine behavior, not adaptation characterizes entrepreneurship. While traditional businessmen and managers react to existing demand for their standardized products, entrepreneurial activity creates an expansion of demand for its own, said Schumpeter, for its new products. But the most cutting definition of innovation provided by Schumpeter is the following. Innovations are changes in production functions which cannot be decomposed into infinitesimal steps. And as many approaches as you please, you will never get a real reason. So what does innovation mean? First, it is a unique qualitative change that cannot be made up by deduction and computation. It cannot be achieved by cumulative changes. It creates something new, untried, and irreversible. Innovation contradicts adaptation and routine. Innovation is not the invention of a new product in a technical sense, but it is to overcome the difficulties, the resistance of the environment, like convincing buyers, creditors, to combine the different elements of production in an appropriate way. Innovation is creative rather than adaptive response to market disturbances and the changes of demand. And finally, innovation destroys the state of equilibrium of the market. Schumpeter also contrasted the innovative activity of entrepreneurs to the non-classical equilibrium model of economy. Like entrepreneurs in the economic market, innovative political leaders also produce disequilibrium in the political market. Therefore, unlike the political scientist Anthony Downs assumed in his Lenin and Water theory, politics is always in a state of disequilibrium. Distinguishing entrepreneurial activity from routine behavior and business is a crucial novelty of Schumpeter's approach. The political equivalent of it is to differentiate political leaders from bureaucrats and civil servants. And Schumpeter did this differentiation and he followed the Weberian line of argument here. The most important conclusions for us from the Schumpeterian account of the economic and the political market and innovation are the following. There is no innovation in state of equilibrium. Only quantitative change happens in a state of equilibrium. Entrepreneurs or political leaders introduce innovation, therefore that means a qualitative change. And the qualitative change disturbs the equilibrium of the market. Innovative leadership provides the dynamic of the process where not only quantitative but qualitative change takes place. In crisis, if crisis means a change in the qualitative conditions of the state of affairs, then innovation can be an adequate response to crisis with its exogenous origin. I go further to the second part of my lecture. It is about the changing conditions of leadership in exceptional times. I began with the differentiation between normal and exceptional times, that is a long tradition in political thinking. And in the following part, I would like to differentiate between these two ideal types of political situations. Although politics is always in a state of disequilibrium, exceptional time is not synonym for disequilibrium. Disequilibrium is the normal state of politics. Exceptional time is an extraordinarily high level of uncertainty and unpredictability. We will see soon in this sense. In the next few minutes, I will try to explore in more detail that to what extent emergency situation changes the conditions of decision-making and leadership. And I will analyze the conditions of political activity in normal and crisis times along different analytical dimensions. The first of these dimensions is the contingency dimension. In normal times, contingency is on a low level. The prevailing norms, conventions, and the existing institutions make politics more or less predictable. There is uncertainty, but uncertainty fluctuates around the normal level. In crisis situations, however, contingency rises abruptly and unexpectedly to an extremely high level. Rules are not followed, conventions are breached, and the situation of an extreme unpredictability comes into being. To illustrate this point, I would like to cite a famous metaphor for my emotion. It is about political activity in general, that means in normal times. In political activity, as also, then men sail a boundless and bottomless sea. There is neither harbor for shelter, nor floor for anchorage, neither starting place nor appointed destination. The enterprise is to keep afloat on an even keel. The sea is both standard and the seamanship consists in using the resources of a traditional manner of behavior in order to make a friend of every hostile occasion. That is about the normal situation of leadership, this seaman metaphor. But the exceptional times, that means in a storm, for example, extending Osho's metaphor, seamen find themselves in such a distinct circumstances where their knowledge leads them in the large, between them, where their traditional manner of behavior does not matter anymore. Like seamen in the storm, political leaders in crisis needed innovation to achieve something new, something unexperienced to have a change to survive. The reason is that in crisis, contingency is unexpectedly and rapidly intensified. The second dimension is political stability. While normalcy can be characterized by a relative stability, crisis is defined by dramatic increase of uncertainty and instability. Crisis generally means declining prospects and increased insecurity, while economic, social, political indicators dramatically deteriorate. Crises often have a destructive impact as they cancel out previous leadership strategies, and thus they decrease predictability. Not only do they decrease the government's reelection chances in democratic politics, but often lead to posting them between two elections. There are many examples from the last couple of years of European politics. The reason, therefore, is that liability is generally ascribed by voters to the incumbents for the deterioration of the situation. Thus, crises raise standards for governments, and they can only be survived with a better political performance. In crisis, political instability rises to an exceptional high level. So dimension the speed of time. Bertrand de Jouvenel, the French political theorist, made a distinction between the conditions of judicial and political decisions. One of these differences is the following. While in judicial decisions, the facts considered do not change during the process. In political decision-making process, it is not the case. Political decisions are usually made in contingent situations, and in that kind of situations, facts, in fact, continuously change. But in the state of normalcy, the speed of changes of the facts are normal, and therefore political actors have a mental capacity to elaborate them, and the process leaves enough time for deliberation and decision making. In extreme times, it is not the case. In crisis, the speeding up of these changes of the facts reduce the time for deliberation severely. Quick decisions and actions are needed. So we can say that in exceptional situations, the time is speeded up. The fourth dimension is the stake in the game. While normal times can be characterized by low-stake politics, exceptional times can be depicted by high-stake politics. How can we explain this difference? In normal times, the stake of decisions and actions are relatively limited because decisions seldom have long-lasting impact. Decisions usually can be repeated and changed later. The consequences of decisions are more or less predictable in normal politics. In exceptional times, however, political raised to a high level, because decisions usually cannot be changed subsequently. Consequences are often unforeseeable. Decisions are strategic and they usually have long-lasting impact. And finally, while in normal times the state is usually distribution, position, or symbolic, in states of emergency it is often existential, either in political or even sometimes in physical sense. My short conclusion is that in crisis the state is multiplied. The fifth dimension is the rules of the game. In normal times the rules of the game are fixed. That's why we can talk about rules as a matter of game as a matter of the game metaphor at all, otherwise it is inappropriate. Political actors know the limits of their actions. In crisis times, however, the rules of the game are violated and broken. The constraints for political activity are reached and political leaders don't obey the rules and conventions anymore. Due to the crisis of dominant policy paradigm, no accepted benchmark is left for to measure or justify political actions. The conclusion is that in exceptional times, the rules of the game are abrogated. This is dimension policy paradigm. In normal times, a well-known and accepted policy paradigm prevails, which provide a framework for interpretation of the world of politics for everybody. In this paradigm, political decisions and public policy are intelligible and justifiable for everybody. In crisis, however, the well-known means of problem solving and policy making fail, and the framework for interpretation therefore has been broken. A change of paradigm takes place, although it often takes very long time until the contours of a new paradigm becomes clearly recognizable and visible. To sum up, crises often lead to the change of policy or political paradigm. And finally, about the average readiness of decisions. In normal times of politics, decisions and actions are usually cooperative and multilateral. Change of policy paradigm in crisis situations, however, increases the average variation of decisions and actions. A change of paradigm is not a momentous event, but an often long-lasting period. And after the collapse of the previously dominant policy paradigm, a crisis of interpretation prepares for a long period. In situations like this, decisions and actions seem to be, and actually are, arbitrary, since they do not fit easily into the whole declining framework of interpretation by no new, highly accepted, undisputed, and instructive paradigm emerged yet. Especially innovative and past-breaker decisions and actions seems to be arbitrary in these situations. And I go further to the third part of my lecture. The third part is about the constructivist approach to crisis and its situations. You have seen that in this lecture I differentiate between normal and exceptional times. We have seen that the conditions of decision making and leadership are rather different in these two ideal types. Traditional argument in political literature assumes that political reality is produced and shaped exclusively by underlying structural changes or exogenous factors. In this approach, new extraordinary situations emerge always as exogenous shocks of political actors. In my view, there is a massive and persistent structuralist bias in this argument, since it neglects agency as autonomous author of political reality. We have seen so far in the ocean analysis and also in our Tucker's concept of leadership that although there are pure facts, no political situation has an objective nature. Political situations have an interpretative character. We may also argue that political reality has strong voluntarist elements, namely, actions based on perception and human will do have real consequences in the world of physical facts. The reproduction of political reality has an endogenous nature. Both Oakeshott and Tucker underline the role of subjective and normative elements in the definition of political situations. First, political situations are results of previous choices and actions of autonomous human agents. Second, political reality is a result of an interpretation by an intentional factors regarding future state of affairs. Exceptional time is therefore not an objective state, but it is a perception and interpretation of pure facts as potentials for the future through the prism of agents' aims and goals. For example, a status quo conservative may dramatize situation to gain emergency mandate to restore status quo ante. A pro-reformer or radical political agent may underline the structural elements of crisis in order to justify its orderly measures, the introduction of structural reforms for the future. To sum up this point, perception and reality are strongly fused in politics. There are normal and essential types as to ideal types of political reality, but political reality depends strongly on past actions, on current perception and interpretation. It also depends on human expectations and on human will regarding future state of affairs. In the followings, I would like to recall further authors whose works contribute to the constructivist interpretation of France's situation. Their works reveal further elements of endogenous explanation of political reality. My first source is Frank Ankerschmidt, a professor of intellectual history. Frank Ankerschmidt, in his theory of political representation, criticizes the objectivist account of political reality. In an objectivist account, political reality is out there. It is objectively given for us who can recognize it and act accordingly. Instead of this absolute concept of political reality, Ankerschmidt unfolds an aesthetic concept. In contrast to physical reality, political reality is not found or discovered but made, says Ankerschmidt. However, there is a crucial difference between artistic and political representation. Unlike in artistic representation, for example in the case of landscape painting, in politics there is no pre-existing reality before representation. Political reality is coming into existence through representation. For example, in the case of the electorate to be represented, reality is not a reality that is objectively given to us. But we may argue, says Ankerschmidt, that precisely this is what representation is for, because there is no objectively given proposal for political action on the part of the people represented. And because it would be a category mistake to expect the existence of such an objectively proposal. We need representation in order to be able to define such proposals at all. Said Ankerschmidt. Representation in this concept has a symbolic aspect, but it includes cognition and agency either. Ankerschmidt says that representation is selective. It proposes that we see the world from a certain perspective, and that we arrange what can be seen in a specific way. And representation here has an epistemological role. It is representation itself that organizes knowledge. In most that I cited from our question, it is thanks to the capacity to organize knowledge that we can orient ourselves in reality and enter in a meaningful relationship with it. What is representation for our question? It is political leadership in my argument. Political reality is created, interpreted and shaped the relationship between rival leaders and in the relationship between leaders and followers. In this process, political leaders as agents, as an initiative, creative and innovative role. I have already cited Schumpeter as a concept of innovation. Now I call a political scientist William Reicher's theory of aesthetic, which can be regarded as a special kind of political creativity and innovation. It is about strategic manipulation of political situations and the structuring of decision-making situations by political agents. Is aesthetic. Reicher says that aesthetic is a word to describe the art of setting up situations, opposing the alternatives on which political actors must choose, in such a way that even those who do not wish to do so are compelled by the structure of the situation to support the aesthetician's purpose. So the aesthetic is a sort of manipulation of the situation. Manipulation doesn't have any negative meaning here because there are no situations ex ante or ex objectively given situation. So through aesthetic, politicians seek to structure decision-making alternatives to win political battles. Aesthetic thus takes voter preferences as an exogenous factor, as something ex ante given for us. Like Cantor's median voter theory. Aesthetics seek to achieve the result without changing preferences, but simply through the structuring and manipulation of the decision-making situations. Reicher Reicher distinguished 5 types of aesthetics, and the first 4 is about this sort of manipulation of the ex-ante given preferences of the consumers or citizens in the case of his argumentation. But I will focus on the 5th one, that is the alteration of the dimension of judgment. There is one type of aesthetic through which we can transcend Reicher's original research scheme and transcend the assumption of ex-ante given preferences. The alteration of dimensional judgment is relevant for the current analysis since it involves the introduction of a new viewpoint or perspective for the judgment of the alternatives. It throws the issue and the alternatives into a new light and thereby rearranging the decision preferences. Take notice that now we are taking from an exogenous to an endogenous explanation. We can conclude that there are no political preferences without context. Therefore, no distribution of preferences may be regarded as objective and independent of context. It is judgment, dimension of judgment, and the dimension of interpretation which shape Looking political situation from a new perspective and judging it in a new context means a redefinition of the political situation. The context of citizens and other actors' preferences is changed as consequence of the perception and the interpretation of political reality by political leaders. We have seen that the introduction of a new alternative depends on invention of a new viewpoint. Invention of a new viewpoint requires innovation, requires artistic creativity of the highest order. The metaphor of art expresses the fact that political activity is a creative activity. It involves the bringing into being something which previously did not exist, just like visual performance, art. Its characteristics are innovation and improvisation in unique, unrepeatable situations. The next author is Thomas Kuhn, a philosopher of scientist, and I will use this concept of paradigm change. The concept of paradigm change is rather similar to Schumpeter's theory of economic development, and we rely on alteration of the dimension of judgment. Kuhn makes a difference between normal science and scientific revolution. Normal science means that there is a single paradigm which dominates scientific thinking and research. By paradigm, Kuhn refers to a coherent tradition of scientific research. Paradigm is, says Kuhn, an implicit body of internet, theoretical and methodological belief that permits selection, evaluation, and criticism. In normal times, that means in normal science includes terminology, scientific assumptions, research questions, methodology fit to the accepted paradigm. No question is taken under scientific consideration which doesn't fit to this paradigm. In scientific revolution, however, a paradigm change takes place, a new paradigm emerges. It usually happens when the old paradigm persistently fails to solve scientific problems and gets into crisis. But it is not a necessary consequence of such a state of affairs. Scientific revolutions are, with those old words, and all cumulative developmental episodes in which an older paradigm is replaced in whole or in part by an incompatible new one. To sum up, Hochschul and Alberschmidt write about the shift of the perspective concerning political issues. That means a change in everyday sense. It happens in everyday politics, in normal ones. But Thomas Kuhn's concept of paradigm shift concerns a change in the overarching concept of political reality. He used the revolution metaphor for paradigm change, since it is not ordinary at all. It is exceptional. It takes place in exceptional times. Three conclusions are especially important for us, for our argument from Thomas Kuhn's work. The first, when paradigms change, says Kuhn, the world itself changes with them. And transformation of the vision about the world that reality takes place. Two nice citations from Thomas Kuhn about the paradigm change, and I will go further and the second point of conclusions from Kuhn's argument. The second is description of the nature of paradigm change is also important for us. Kuhn stated that like the choice between competing political institutions incompatible methods of community life. So paradigm change always means a change between two incompatible worlds that we cannot compare. The third conclusion is about the revolutionary nature of paradigm change. By revolutionary nature, who means that the competition between paradigms is not the sort of battle that can be resolved by proofs. It is resolved by the consent of the scientific community. Using a Platonic language, we can say that it is not episteme but doxa that count in this respect. Having reviewed Osho, Schumpeter, Riker, Ankersen and Kuhn, we could see that in political competition, rival interpretations of political reality emerge regularly. As Ankersen notes, there is a lack of tertium comparationis behind the interpretations of political reality. There is no common, undisputed yardstick for the measurement of area of interpretations of viewpoints. It also means that there is no objective political reality as a state of affairs, but is independent of factors, goals, wishes, interpretations. Therefore, political leadership is not simply reaction to political reality, but leaders themselves who take part actively in creating, shaping, and manipulating political reality. But how can we account for the phenomenon that crises can be constructed, invented? Although a crisis discourse usually has some factual base, for example, the GDP is really decreasing, but there are no objective criteria of how much fall of the GDP needs to be observed in order to define a situation as a crisis. It is the crisis narrative itself that shapes the situation to be perceived and defined as crisis situation. As the crisis discourse and perception make extraordinary measures legitimate, they thus increase the leeway of the incumbent political leaders. Thus, crisis discourse raises political space as it leads to decisions that break with graduality and proclaim the state of exception. Therefore, it leads to increased room for maneuver for political leaders. We could see above unusual or emergency measures can be legitimate under extraordinary circumstances. Therefore, as Gary Schiffman revealed through ancient Greek examples, political leaders may have vested interest in dramatizing the situation in order to increase their political room for maneuver. And while exogenous shocks may exist for governments, like for example in the case of the financial crisis of 2008 for many small and open economy in Europe, the perception of the actual situation as crisis depends not so much on exogenous events, not so much on sub-objective situation, as on the interpretation and framing by political actors. I would like to go further into the last part, the first part of my lecture, and I accept that to be yeah, that's it. I don't, that doesn't come. So, the first part of my lecture is about innovation in leadership in normal and exceptional times, and I would like to give some empirical examples to make it more interesting and relevant for you and for the summer school. I would like to combine innovation and leadership with the nature of political situation, especially the crisis situation. I will draw the famous article of political scientist Peter Hall on policy paradigms, by whom used political metaphor the nature of paradigm change in science, Peter Hall used Thomas Kuhn's concept of paradigm to reveal the nature of public policy change. He aims to make difference between normal public policy making and more radical transformation, but he called change of policy paradigm. Peter Hall identifies three kinds of changes in policy making, namely first, second, and third order change, according to the magnitude of change. First, you can see on the slide, I'm not sure that it's visible back of the wall, but the three main types and some empirical examples. I will not talk about them, just show them, I will talk about only one of them. So first order change refers to policy adjustment, when the experiences of past policy making, new information and changes in the environment make minor changes in public policy necessary. So first order change is routinized decision making when the precise settings of instruments of policy making are modified, but the changes do not concern the applied policy instruments or policy goals. The features are incrementalism, satisficing, and routinized decision making that we normally associate with the policy process characterized first order policy change. There are three examples of population policy, electoral and fiscal policy. In fiscal policy, the increase of the VAT rate can be an example for the refinement of settings in order to, for example, in order to decrease budget deficit. There are, for example, population policy, electoral constitutional policy. Second order change, it is not only in second order change, not only settings, but the instruments of policy are as well altered. And an introduction of new instruments like property tax to decrease budget deficit can be an example for this change. If we take the example of population policy, first order change can be increasing maternity leave from 6 to 12 months, but the second order change, the change of instrument, maybe it can be, for example, introduction of program building childcare goals, the new instrument, not just settings of what's already exists. And jumping to the third one, the third order change will be a policy paradigm change in terms of population policy that would be legalizing and boosting immigration, but it sounds nonsense in some European countries. That is that to legalize immigration and boost immigration for a government means take necessary and complete change of thinking about the whole nature of the particular communities. So that is about third order change. What is third order change? It is not only settings and the instruments of policy that are modified, but the hierarchy of goals guiding policy is also changed here. It takes place when the first and second order changes produce only insufficient or no result. It means a more dramatic change because it concerns changes in overarching goals that guide policy in a particular field. Peter Hall's native example was in his article as an example for paradigm change, change in public policy making. The shift from Keynesianism to monetarism in Britain at the end of the 1970s during the crisis of the welfare state. During this shift, inflation replaced unemployment as the main target of economic policy. What does Peter call as policy paradigm? Policymakers customarily work within a framework of ideas and standards that specifies not only the goals of policy and the kind of instruments that can be used to attain them, but also the very nature of the problems they are meant to be addressing. It is an interpretative framework of policy making. It means that policies are made in some system of ideas and standards which is comprehensible and plausible to the actors involved. Policy paradigm is a way of thinking, a lens of perceiving problems, a way of cognition of the world, and an attitude to the potential modes of treating it. So, referring back to the previous example with immigration as a government policy that still needs a new attitude and a new cognition of the world, a new way of thinking. Hence, a new paradigm means a new way of seeing things and discovering a new, different world. What is important for my argument here is the differentiation to be made between normal and exceptional public policy making. His other argument is also important that first and second order change in policy do not automatically lead to third order change. To accomplish third order change is an exceptional achievement of political leaders. While first and second order changes in normal policy making are usually decided and carried out by technocrats and policy experts, changing policy paradigm is eminently political in nature. It is completed by innovative political leaders. Why is it so? First, the accumulation of anomalies, failures of public policy lead to the failure of the old policy paradigm. The emergence of new rival ideas, however, engender conflicting opinions among policy experts. There is no technocratic solution for that, no solution by proofs, since paradigms are by definition never fully commensurable by scientific or technical terms. Politicians have to decide in these cases. Second, paradigm shift is much higher phenomenon than incumbent decision on public policy in a specific field. It involves a change in the way of thinking of policy experts, public servants, columnists, and public intellectuals. Paradigm shift includes the change of the wider policy discourse, the shift in the thinking of the public. In addition to paradigm change in larger policy areas may be also subject of electoral campaign, so it is judged by the public opinion and by the electorate. Paradigm shift in politics is a great achievement of political leaders who have strong impact on followers and on the wider public in these cases. Finally, I would like to give few examples for change of policy paradigm. First, going from the so-called great tradition of political history and political history. I will present three short examples from British politics. Three great leaders, Churchill, Margaret Thatcher, and Tony Blair. Winston Churchill fought unsuccessfully for a new British foreign policy paradigm vis-à-vis Neville Chamberlain during the time of the Munich Agreement in 1938. Unlike Chamberlain, Churchill realized that conventional British foreign policy approach did not work in the case of Adolf Hitler. The real paradigm shift in British policy, however, happened only 2 years later when the international political crisis in Europe became visible for everybody and Churchill replaced Chamberlain as a prime minister. The second one was Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was not only an innovative leader, but she was also able to change the ruling policy paradigm, namely the whole framework of political interpretation and judgment. She realized not only that the welfare state ran into crisis, but offered a new policy paradigm, a political ideology as a solution for that. Her innovation included not only policy level, that means the shift of the major target from unemployment to inflation, but she was able to insert this policy issue to wider political ideological frame We know the result. It was the advance of neoconservatism, which first destroyed and then replaced the post-war welfare consensus in the European political system. Maybe the innovation of tolerance minor comparing to Winston Churchill's and Thatcher's innovation. But anyway, he was also an innovative political leader. He turned back, since he turned back to traditional labor policy and achieved significant policy paradigm shift within the left, which had been in a deep political crisis for a long time. After these examples from British politics, I cannot resist the temptation to give an example from contemporary Hungarian politics. With this example, I would like to go back to the beginning of my lecture, to the financial crisis in 2008. I will compare two Hungarian prime ministers, Gordon Bajnai, who was prime minister between 2009 and 2010, and Viktor Orbán, who has been prime minister since 2010 until now. I would like to unfold two different kinds of political leadership during the years of the financial crisis. The difference includes the interpretation of the political situation by these two leaders, the crisis narrative they introduced, the scope and nature of the crisis in the crisis discourse, the vision of political goal they had, the role of innovation in handling the situation, their political conduct in policy instruments, and the relation to the mainstream policy paradigm ruled Europe during these years. The first leader, Gordon Bajnai, was elected to be a prime minister of Hungary by the socialists and liberals in March 2009, after the turbulent years of the socialist Gyurcsány government. Gyurcsány was not able to balance the budget or finance the foreign debt in the IMF loans, nor build public trust for himself, and he had to resign as prime minister. Gordon Bajnai had a technocratic image and appeared as a crisis manager. Although he served for years as a member of the Gyurcsány cabinet, Bajnai presented himself as a technocrat like Mario Monti in Italy. Just as his predecessor, Bajnai considered the crisis as an exogenous phenomenon which can be solved by extraordinary measures. But these measures are scheduled to be temporary ones. According to Bajnai's crisis narrative, it was a pure financial crisis which required pure technocratic solution. Hence, he introduced severe austerity measures to decrease the budget deficit and to finance government debt. In addition to it, he maintained the IMF credit line to finance government debt. The IMF contract, however, defined the frame of government's economic policy for the following period. The measures Bajnai used were conventional ones, and he aimed to restore the situation ex ante with the measures. The challenge for him was to bring back normalcy. That means restoring the prevailing policy paradigm as soon as possible. So he remained within the existing policy paradigm and in a wider sense, within the existing political paradigm. Viktor Orbán was quite different. Viktor Orbán and his party, the Fidesz, achieved a landslide victory in the 2010 general elections. Orbán challenged the policy of his predecessor. He used a radically different crisis narrative and applied new innovative instruments to answer the crisis. Yes. The slide is just about the major points of the policy priorities and the means the two prime ministers used during these years. Although Orban kept the budget deficit below 3% of the GDP, which is not a requirement of the European Union, but he challenged a few conventional policy measures. He refused to take new parts of the IMF decline in order to widen his cabinet's room for maneuver. Besides keeping most of the austerity measures introduced by Neumann, Orban started new innovative instruments as well. Crisis made the application of extraordinary measures like crisis taxes to balance the budget temporarily legitimate in many countries. But Viktor Orban modified this narrative, introduced extraordinary measures, but made them permanent as a part of a larger goal to restructure socio-economic distribution of the country. For example, crisis tax on banking is not only for balancing the budget, but to host international banks out from the country. His declared aim includes raising Hungarian ownership in the banking sector above 50%. Unlike his liberal market-oriented predecessor, Orban favors the concept of the strong state intervention in the non-competitive sectors, and he emphasizes national sovereignty in policy-making within the European Union. These measures have been justified by a wider ideological shift pulled by Orban and his party. He challenged the new policy paradigm and developed a new policy, or in a wider sense, a new political paradigm, and successfully mobilized people to support it within the establishment and also on the electorate. I differentiate here from the notion of political paradigm from Peter Kohl's concept of policy paradigm. Instead of policy paradigm, which refers to a specific policy field, we can speak about an ideological or general political paradigm in Orban's case, as the same was the case in Margaret Thatcher's paradigm shift. Since it includes this change, it includes the change of political thinking and philosophy of government in a much more general sense than just goals in specific policy fields. What is the nature of Orban's new political paradigm? Just few elements of it. Direct links to citizens instead of party networks and representation. That is often called this shift is populism in means of politics. And populism in another sense. Populism as a regular reference to the people's will and as an anti-establishment flavor in rhetoric. Defense of citizens' interests against multinational banks and financial institutions. That's also part of regular rhetoric, and there are policy instruments to achieve that. The neo-Weberian concept of strong state instead of governance and liberal market orientation is also some new element. Euroscepticism and an articulation of national interest instead of the policy is what we can characterize as what is good for the European Union, is good for Hungary. That was the general policy line and rhetorical line in the previous governments before Orban. There is a stress on national interest, a goal of strengthening the role of domestic middle class, a different concept of the state, a new concept that is the state is a value rather state instead of a neutral liberal state, and traditional conservative and Christian values often emphasized instead of liberal values. To sum up this characterization, there has been a political ideological shift from liberal socialist, market and globalization oriented and pro-European left then conservative, more authoritarian state interventions and Eurosceptic right, which stresses national interest, the role of domestic class, and which uses often populist means and rhetoric in politics. I also have a slide as a summary of the main points of this Euler-Orban comparison. And I would like to draw a few conclusions from the comparison. I think this slide is more or less, I hope it is clear and you can understand the slide, and I don't want to explain the slide in more details, but I would like to add further comments to the comparison. So in addition to the points on the slide, I see general remarks. First, the comparison, Euler-Orban comparison, highlights crucial difference between adjustment of public policy, what Peter called first and second order change, and change of policy paradigm, what he calls third order change. And Gogol took the first, and Victor Orban took the second direction, so that their policy clearly illustrates this conceptual difference between adjustment and policy paradigm change, or in the case of Orban, political paradigm change, probably more fit better to what's going on. The second comment, the comparison also underlines strong contrast between reactive leadership, that means reactive leadership answering for challenges like exogenous shocks, and on the other hand, active and innovative leadership that was shaping the events and the context through actions and interpretations. And why they believe to be a reactive leader, example for the first type of figure in Orban turned to be an active, shaping leader in this comparison. We could say using James McGregor Burns dichotomy between two types of leadership, transactional and transformational leadership. We say using this term that Orban shows the traits of transformational leader. Has larger ambitions to change much more than just manage everyday government policies. The third conclusion, the comparison also draws attention to the importance of role perception of political leaders. While perceived himself as a crisis manager, a technocrat, he even called his government a cabinet of experts. Viktor Orban presents himself as a political leader. He renews not only public policy but Hungarian politics in a more general sense. He regards himself as a founder of a new regime who opens a new era of politics. So that were my remarks to this comparison. And to finish my lecture, I would like to draw some conclusions for the whole topic, 5 short conclusions. We have seen, I hope so, that there are crises which have exogenous origin, for example, natural or industrial catastrophes are clear examples for that. But crises are often formed, shaped, and sometimes created by local actors. Therefore, to understand them, we need to search for an endogenous explanation of political crises. The second point is that political leaders have crucial role, even in normal times, we knew that. But in extraordinary situations, their role is enhanced, multiplied, and therefore become decisive in crisis situations. Their role is also increased by the expectation of the public in these situations. Third, crisis I mean that innovative, they are often innovative leaders who create these order situations in order to achieve their political goals and expand their own economy. The whole case of the Orban divided comparison was is a clear example for this sort of political action. And finally, crises may evoke adjustment of public policy, and normalities often restored this way. However, crises may have profound or even revolutionary consequences. They often produce a change of policy or political paradigm in which political leaders have an active, often decisive role. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for this lecture. We now have a better understanding of the key concepts of this summer school, I mean innovation and change. We were also shown we are much more familiar with the Hungarian case, and we, on the basis of it, we can analyze other scenarios and other strategies of innovation in terms of leaders great people who are cooperating with me. And this is the second, as I said, successful application was prepared by Maciej, helped with some aid from my side. So he unfortunately is absent because of other duties, but honestly he coordinated everything. So we work together coordinating this event, this project, and so when talking about those who are involved, I would like to express my gratitude to all universities that were involved and all representatives of the partner universities. So special thanks to Professor Zygmunt Schmidt from University of Koblenz-Landau. As I said, he was founding father of the idea together with me. Okay. And the colleagues from we obtained a huge contribution and help from University of Bucharest, University of Cluj, and University of Brussels, of course, University de Bruxelles. So this is because of these efforts were joined, and of course special thanks should be devoted to University of Zagreb also, and to the strong group of PhD candidates, and especially to Josip Lucev, who was also involved in preparing or to strengthen the cooperation between the participants of the summer school, and namely we applied for strategic partnership just to strengthen the cooperation between these institutions. So of course I can't and I didn't forget the group of PhD candidates from our institute, from the Institute of Political Science, and of course the students of political science and the students of public policy studying at the Institute of Political Science, who are supporting us volunteering. Thank you for your efforts. And of course, the special thanks to the group of when talking about the group of our PhD candidates, special thanks are directed to Michał Banasz and Mateusz Zieliński, as they were also involved in preparing the application to the strategic partnership, which is quite, let's say, strategic project of ours. So I almost mentioned everyone. Of course, thank you for the support from the institute, from the rector, from the dean. I also have I would like also to express my gratitude to Regional Center of International Debate and College of Eastern Europe. These institutions are supporting us in all the activities we are implementing. So special thanks to the President of the College of Eastern Europe, Mr. Dąbrowski, and thanks to the Director of Regional Center of International Office, Maciej Makulski, and he is there. And to Dr. They are supporting us, let's say, permanently in all our activities. So, and thanks for should be considered, but also, let's say, this personal. So feel free